From the heart of Central Florida, you are listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gornoski. Glad to be back with you live again across Tampa Bay, FM, AM, in Orlando, FM and AM. Don't touch the dial. It's going to be another exciting hour as we analyze the news and the headlines at a deeper level than you get anywhere else in radio or television. And I would say all of the YouTube channels, you just don't get the wide range we do. We get into physics. We get into economics. We get into the nature of anthropology, where we came from, how we're processing things, the rituals, the taboos, the rights that we instill in our political system. We get into all this stuff because that's what A Neighbor's Choice is. We roll up our sleeves, we solve problems neighbor to neighbor. We don't rely on tribalism to cloud our judgment and our discernment. And so joining me is someone who has been a frequent guest on my show in the past. It's been a little bit of time since we spoke on air, but he's the founder of Black Guns Matter, which is a firearm safety and educational program. He's also a rapper, Toure. How you doing?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, Maj, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, man? Glad to be back. Appreciate you having me again.
Yeah, it's great to reconnect. And, you know, we've, since we last spoke, last time we were just in Orlando radio, now we've expanded to more stations, and we're glad to have you with us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so, you know, a lot of things are going on in the news, and I thought it would be great to get your perspective. We've been trying to have an honest and frank conversation on this radio show, and we did an interview with Angela Yee recently, that the co-host of the Breakfast Club, where we got into issues regarding race and justice and policing and what we can do to come together. And I know that you have been at the forefront of the conversation in a lot of different, communities and platforms, promoting a policy and a political framework, which I think is very conducive for liberty and peace and nonviolence.
Agree, 100% agree. I mean, even though we're Black Guns Matter, the reality is we can't have a conversation about firearms until we have a conversation about, de-escalation and conflict resolution. You know, there's this famous quote where it's like this samurai master, one of his apprentices comes up to him and says, I want to learn about being a warrior, but I see you in the garden all of the time. And he's like, man, I'd rather be a warrior in the garden, than a gardener in war. So you prepare for these things, but you prefer to be at peace. And so that's one of the basic tenets of not only just Black Guns Matter, but, our solutionary lifestyle is, in essence, we're here to de-escalate and avoid conflict as much as possible. But if you can't, unfortunately, you need to have the means to, protect and defend yourself, your loved ones, and sometimes complete strangers. You never know, what may happen. So you just have to be prepared for it. But, we always advocate and err on the side of peace.
Yeah, and it seems like, I tell people, even if you hate guns, then you should be for gun freedom, because when we create gun laws, all it does is create a lucrative black market for guns to trade in the underground, and that makes obscene profits for gangs that want to sell those now illegal guns. It doesn't make the guns evaporate, and all it does is it makes men with qualified immunity called the state come in and use gun violence to take people's guns away, right?
Right, exactly. I think a lot of times people don't really see that long term. There's tactics and there's strategy. Tactics are short term. I think the people that are misinformed because a lot of their information in regards to unconstitutional gun laws are, based on limited information. So when they don't know, they in essence, they base it off of a trauma. Let's say if someone did an ignorant thing with a firearm, or someone was negligent and someone was harmed because of the firearm, So their natural knee-jerk reaction is the short-term tactic of, saying, hey, man, we got to do something. We got to do something. And we got to, naturally or unnaturally, they say, we got to add another law. We got to do a law. We got to get the guns off the streets. They say these knee-jerk short-term tactics, but that works in the overall strategy of adding to more violence. But when you step back from the elephant a bit and step back and can take the whole picture in, you start to see that the areas where there's less gun control, where there's more responsible ownership, where there's, it's deterrent. There's more people running around with, firearms, and the culture is different. Then you see your overall strategy being in alignment with freedom and being in alignment with understanding. And that in and of itself, again, it ties back into peace. All of the areas that have more, less restrictions and more firearms ownership, responsible firearms ownership across the country, have less violent crime. So those people kind of don't, I get where they're coming from. There are brothers and sisters that are hurting, that have been experienced or exposed to some form of trauma, usually in regards to firearms. They don't even see themselves as the person with the gun to defend life. When they, you paint this psychological picture of someone that's never shot before or never touched a firearm, they see it as obviously like an inanimate object that's going to blow up for some reason, and or, psychologically they see themselves as the person that the gun is pointed on. They don't see themselves as the hero or the heroine defending life with a firearm. And you do that by just reshifting the narrative, rechanging the perception of the person, by safe and responsible ownership and demystifying some of it. So again, I think it's very important, again, for us as solutionaries, we have a three-step approach. Our three-step approach is, one, dealing with empathy when you're dealing with people. Even if you don't agree or they don't, know what you know. You deal with empathy because they're coming generally from a place of ignorance or trauma. Then you start to present facts, and you present those facts from that same empathetic place. Then you guys can both come up with solutions, catered solutions to each individual's reality together. So it's empathy, facts, and solutions. So when we're being empathetic for people that are moving off of that trauma or ignorance, we can lean them in the direction of facts, not hardcore cold facts in the beginning, because you've, no empathy, you've established no rapport. And then after that, once there's rapport established, and then you're sharing some of the actual facts of the matter because their ignorance has not allowed them to receive that fact up until that moment, then you guys can start creating some of those solutions together. So we understand the people that, there's a small few that actually know and just want more control. They exist too. But by and large, it's mostly people that are unaware of what the rules, the parameters are, the information. And it's our job as humans and as Americans to reach them on whatever quote-unquote side of the aisle they're on.
And as we see with these big news stories about like the death of George Floyd and others, that people seem to be more driven by stories of unique individuals that seem to shift the conversation most dramatically, as opposed to facts and statistics and data. For example, when I talk about the violence of gun laws, I mentioned, people like Duncan Lemp, who's shot in Maryland while sleeping because someone had a tip-off that he had a gun in the house that I guess they didn't allow in his area. Or I'm thinking about Royal Wilson, 9-year-old African-American boy in Chicago who gets marched out with his brothers and sisters in freezing cold rain and handcuffs by an army of SWAT members armed with AR-15s. And why were they there? Because someone had a law that said, hey, you can send in a SWAT team if this family has an AR-15 in the house. They didn't even find the AR-15 that they were looking for, but they certainly pointed AR-15s in a 9-year-old person's face, right? So that's the violence, that's the vulgarity, that's the barbarity of gun laws, but we don't want to look at the sausage making of how those laws play out, do we?
Well, we don't want to see it because of the fact that it can shape your narrative in a different direction. We don't want to see it because sometimes we don't want to look at our own ignorance. We don't want to see it because America, our nation, and our governing bodies, for the most part, have been, we are addicted to the spoils of crime as opposed to being addicted to the liberty of freedom. When you have, overbloated police departments, that's why everybody across the country, the defund the police conversation is picking up so much steam. It's picking up so much steam because we have allowed the militarization of the police force to become overwhelming, and overbloated. We have allowed foot soldiers for the state, because that's what police are, to enforce very unconstitutional laws. You're talking about gun control laws. We have over 20,000 gun control laws on American books. That is too much. All of these laws, there's actually one law in regards to that. Don't murder people. You know, whether it's a knife, whether it's a bat, whether it's a gun. All of those laws fall in that. Now, all of those arbitrary rules, your rifle has to be under this amount or over this size and length, or you catch a felony for that, and the ATF's involved, and they send guys with guns to potentially come kill you. These are very unconstitutional, very stupid laws that our nation has become addicted to.
Right.
We have become addicted to the money that goes along with the prison population. That situation. We got to create rules. We got to chase crime. You shouldn't have to chase crime. Crime has a victim. The victim will tell you. What happens is we become addicted to the spoils. You have prisons that are being opened up, and financiers are telling the state, the state is telling, vice versa. You got to keep a certain amount of prisoners in this prison. Not, we're going to cut down on crime. They're saying you have to keep a certain amount of prisoners in the prison.
Right.
These are jobs that have been created off of the foolishness and unconstitutional nature of these rules, and it's time for us to rip that Band-Aid off.
We're speaking with Maj Toure, founder of Black Guns Matter. We'll continue live in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It can be devastating. There is a law firm in Tampa Bay that will keep you informed throughout the entire process. That law firm is Catania & Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania & Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims do not even realize that they can claim compensation for their loss until they talk to Catania & Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com, award-winning over 28 years and family first. Catania & Catania, personal injury, auto accident, and motorcycle accident attorneys.
Monitoring spoken. And now, a message from Vistaprint. This is a cow. The cow that made the milk that was made into the cheese that made Toure Dairy Farm into the talk of the craft fair. But cheese only lasts so long. The impression a small business like Toure Dairy Farm makes can last much longer, with the right business card to back it up. And now Vistaprint is introducing free shipping on all business cards in any quantity. That's right, free shipping on any card, any style, any quantity. Plug your information and logo into hundreds of fresh designs tailored to your type of company, or upload your own original layout. Pick from paper stocks like matte, glossy, or uncoated. You can even upgrade to a unique touch like rounded corners. The choice is yours. The time is now. I said now, not cow, Farmer Tober. For a limited time only, get free shipping on all business cards in any quantity at Vistaprint.com with promo code 2828. That's promo code 2828 at Vistaprint.com. Vistaprint. Own the now.
The one thing that we have learned from a pandemic is that if we are healthy, we are less likely to be susceptible to grave sickness. With that said, stem cell activation is a big part of keeping ourselves healthy. By activating your own stem cells, you experience energy, sleep, reduction in pain, and a support system that promotes faster healing from wounds. LifeWave B radio patches are an easy, cost, affordable way to activate stem cells. Clinical studies demonstrate that LifeWave patches reset the genes in the body to a younger and healthier state. By wearing the daily patch, your body will activate stem cells to benefit a healthier and productive life. Go to lifeway.com/B radio to see how you can elevate, activate, and regenerate your life with stem cell therapy. There is a special offer with B Radio. The address again is lifewave.com/B radio. The address again is lifewave.com/B radio. Live healthier and wiser with the LifeWave B radio patches at lifewave.com/B radio.
are soaring high across the Sunshine State and around the world. A Neighbor's Choice is back, and we're talking with the founder of Black Guns Matter. He's a musical artist and activist who's engaged in various issues, both at the local level and the national conversation going on. Maj Toure, who's with us now. And Maj, I want to go back to kind of where we were going there. It seems as if that there is a hierarchy in our society that is mediated by violence, the initiation of aggression against people's body and their property and their wealth. And every time the public seems to have enough of it, they're easily manipulated through persuasion techniques to do two things: to renounce more of their freedom. They're always told, well, the reason why this scandal happened is because of your freedom. We're going to take a little bit of that away. And the reason why this thing happened is because of your fellow neighbors, either a different gender, a different race, or a different sexual orientation. And so that's the two things that always seem to occur whenever we start to get tired of the injustices of the hierarchy of our society.
Yeah. So one, and some people have to bear with me during this statement. This may sound a little harsh. America was built on violence. That's it. Like America, this is a nation that had people here, and it's to the victor go the spoil. So I'm not, I live here now. This is where my spirit incarnated into this flesh, and I happen to come through my mother, and I live in America now, in physical form, right? However, America was founded on violence, and getting violent upheaval from tyranny in the form of getting up under the crown, from up under the crown. That's one area. Another area is, we subjugated and took lands. And I say we because I'm a member of America now. I wasn't there, obviously. None of us were. None of us were alive then. However, you got to know the history and deal with it. So when you have created a culture of that and you haven't atoned for that, right? We've made strides. We've tried to be better beings. Most of us have. But overall, we have not atoned for that. This nation, we have not atoned for it. The stain on our flag of slavery, that's a real thing. We have not atoned for it. Then when you have that, and that's the culture, that has been a culture for some time, you haven't atoned for it. And now your citizens, your children, your babies, when they're frustrated, that's how they will respond. Whether it's the Boston Tea Party and we're not okay with it, whether it's, some areas that I may not even agree with, I can understand without agreeing. And so what happens is, because we know that, and some people that have a vested interest in keeping certain levels of chaos or exerting power for themselves under this, or just wants America to not prosper or get better, or would like America to fall. Because they know that that's been a culture and there has been very little atonement, especially now more specifically to the black community, that's where they concentrate their efforts. So then you have three tiers of individuals. You have the person that is a genuine protester that's frustrated by something like the George Floyd killing, or the Breonna Taylor killing, or the Ahmaud Arbery killing. That's the last few months. When that group of people or that person is frustrated, or those group of peoples are frustrated, they protest, which is their right to peaceably assembly as codified in the Constitution and Bill of Rights. Those insidious beings that have a vested interest know that the frustrations are there. They know that the financial space is not, the greatest. So then you go from in the middle of those peaceful protesters, you have people that are there to incite riots and finance chaos. Then at the lower end of that, you have regular old looters, teenagers that just wanted a pair of sneakers or whatever, right? Now, this all is a part of our nation. For the various reasons, level of agree or disagree, this is all a part of our nation. Our nation has allowed those young people to not feel whole or feel a part of something, this American dream, which makes it more easy for them to be influenced by insidious forces, like a Soros, like a whoever, right? We have young people that have not been guided properly as parenting disappears, right? Those people have not been, those young people have not been guided properly, and they don't see, what's the matter? I'll just break the glass and run there and take the sneakers. Not even knowing what they're actually a part of or being used for, or how they're going to be portrayed. They're going to be portrayed as if they're a part of this massive thing that hates all of America, but they don't know that. They're just thinking about some sneakers, And then we have the most impactful part. We have the state, the government, whether that's left, right, whatever, a group of people, deep state, whatever, that want to not empower Americans, not strengthen, the family, not give police officers less things to do, but want to overcharge and give them more work to do, and then at the same time blame them for every single thing. Then they're overstressed. These are all a part of our nation. And I say our because we're a part of it, and we allowed it. We allowed it. We allowed civics to be taken out of schools. We allowed people to not have a spiritual connection just because it wasn't the religion that we may have participated in, even though this place was supposedly built on the concept of spiritual and religious and just freedom. We've allowed ourselves to go further and further away from these concepts of the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. Not that they're the end all be all, but they're a good, chart, a good compass, So we're getting what we're getting simply because what we've allowed. We've allowed billionaires to lobby these places that are supposed to be sacred in regards to systems of checks and balances, judicial, executive, and legislative. We've allowed lobbyists to come in like lawfully and circumnavigate that entire system of checks and balances. It's a system of checks and balances for a reason, but we allowed it for greed, for trinkets, for power. We allowed people to do it. We allowed all of these things, and these are chickens coming home to roost. Now, what level you are represented in that, depends on your karma and what your hand calls for. But the reality is, when we start looking at this from a perspective of this is all human doing, then we can start looking at it honestly and objectively and start applying some actual solutions. But, we come from good soil, so I believe in this. I believe we can get it done.
Yeah, I think what you've said there is a lot more thoughtful than the discourse in the left-right, which is all about arguing over slogans like Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. I think that misses the whole point that you're trying to get at there. So we're speaking with Maj Toure, who's the founder of Black Guns Matter, which is a firearms safety training program. You can look it up, Black Guns Matter, and see what they're doing to educate people on proper use of firearms and how to take care of yourself in a safe and nonviolent, de-escalatory way in any situation, whether it's involved in fellow citizens or a situation with a police officer, always looking for nonviolent outcomes for everyone. We'll continue in just a moment, getting into this topic more.
Taking his grief to Capitol Hill, George Floyd's younger brother, Philonis, made an impassioned plea to House lawmakers not to let his brother's death be in vain. Speaker Nancy Pelosi says House Democrats hope to reach consensus on a new package of bills to address the matter.
If we cannot, reaching across the aisle, trying to find our common ground, if we cannot, we must go forward with the strongest possible legislation to make the biggest possible difference, because we must make change.
The White House said it's putting the finishing touches on proposals to reform the police in wake of Floyd's in-custody death, but said reducing immunity for officers is a non-starter. President Trump says he's ruling out changing the name of Army bases named for Confederate officers. This comes 2 days after the Defense Secretary indicated he's open to a discussion of such changes. And stocks ended a bumpy day, mostly lower, despite assurances from the Federal Reserve it'll keep interest rates low through 2022. I'm Barbara Kusak.
America's schools are closing, which can be especially tough on students who struggle with poverty, hunger, and trauma. But communities in schools can help. Our organization puts caring adults inside schools to help vulnerable students stay in school. Now, in the face of crisis, we're working beyond school walls, delivering meals to students, helping them access remote learning, doing whatever it takes to help them succeed. To learn more, visit communitiesinschools.org.
If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes, you need a new start. Our New Start program will stop collection efforts, remove any liens the IRS has in place, and help you reduce your back taxes by as much as 80%. That's right, 80%. Call 1-800-312-9970. Let the professionals at Coast One Financial Group fight to get you the new start you deserve. If you owe at least $10,000 to the IRS and need a new start on your back taxes, call 1-800-312-9970.
Welcome to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski, here with Maj Toure, who's the founder of Black Guns Matter, which is a firearm safety and educational program that you can get involved in. Just look up Black Guns Matter, follow him, Maj Toure, at Twitter, and join him there in his discussions. Maj, I want to get into some more of where we were going with that. It's interesting that, the thing that George Floyd was accused of was passing a fake $20 bill, and I thought, man, what a symbolic and real indictment on the chaos that is our law and our government today. Because I thought to myself, as you know, the Federal Reserve System creates trillions of dollars out of thin air every year. They debase our purchasing power by debasing and counterfeiting money. The Bible talks about having just weights and measures, meaning it's an ounce of gold is an ounce of gold, and you can't dilute it with lead, as the old kings used to do in the ancient times. But we think we're smarter than that. We think we're better than that. We think we can get away with suspending these laws of morality that are written into our human universe. And so we print money out of thin air, and we debase and destroy and counterfeit currency as legal tender. And that's what our government does to give us all of our goodies that we're supposed to get every year. And meanwhile, a man loses his job apparently because of this forced lockdown, which is another disobedient violation of these principles written into our moral character, of forcing people out of work because of a virus. He loses his job. He allegedly he's accused of passing a $20 bill that's fake. And the government does that every day. And I think to myself, from an anthropological standpoint, we know that human beings imitate. We imitate so much. And what we're doing is, as long as we allow these folks to be the leaders that can debase our purchasing power and lie as law, then it's going to create this atmosphere where people in the ordinary world imitate that kind of practice, and then they get deadly outcomes for it.
It's a contradiction of the highest order. It's literally a contradiction. I in my wallet right now, I have two $1 bills from like 1930 and one from like 1940. And this is when they were, it may be 1940. I know one's like 1932. Either way, they have silver certificates. It's when you could actually go down to the mint and get, $1 worth of silver, in like something actually tangible, the gold standard. When they switched off of that, it in essence went all the way into, hey, we'll just say whatever, When you centralize the money supply, as the founding fathers all were like, yo, do not do that. You centralize the money supply, you give that money, that power over to a very, small few. And in doing so, you get what you get. You get high levels of inflation. You get overextended in credit. You get the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. This is what is happening. I mean, it's like at a certain point, it becomes like, okay, are we trying to make 1984 like a documentary right? And so these are the things that, like economists have told it, like, it's like the founding fathers were able to put together these documents, not because they were just so smart, because they studied other governments, the failures and successes of other governments over time, over millennia. When you do that, you can come up with a pretty good system. When economists are like, yeah, don't do that, like tulip mania was a thing. Since tulip mania was a thing, maybe we shouldn't do that, and it's the same concept. But the people, again, civics have been taken out of the schools, history. And I don't mean like highlighting just the racial components of history. I mean, like history, like what happened when we did this? What happened when we did that? Why did we say this? Why did we not do that? Learning from that, like the ancient Adinkra symbol, the Sankofa bird, you have to kind of look to your past to know where you've been, to know where you're going, and you move accordingly.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, when people tie those things in together, they start to go, oh, man, we kind of been here before. Then you start to look prophetic. No,
Right.
I'm just paying attention to what happened, and I have a stronger memory. This Federal Reserve situation was not asked for, was one, orchestrated into being. On top of it, the founding fathers and most of those guys were like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. When you speed that up to all of the things that you just mentioned of, okay, this guy loses his job. He loses his job because the government overreached. The government said, hey, your job is non-essential, which is an overreach in and of itself. I don't care if you work at McDonald's. If that's how you're paying for your livelihood or your family, then your job is essential. The government told him it wasn't essential. He allegedly, I don't even know what the story, like if that's proven,
Right.
allegedly, passed off $20. $20, and the farce is so crazy. It's like one of the reasons why the Secret Service was even created, to like catch counterfeiters because they knew they were counterfeiting. My point here is this: these contradictions are blaring. Some people will say, you're going too far back, you're going too deep into it, you're doing this. No, we're not going deep into it because this is the same nation that we tell ourselves we got to remember history. Never forget 9/11. So if these series of strange and unfortunate events are going on, then we have to, if they're tied in together, they are. You took this man's job because of government overreach. He could not make money. If I spent $20 is true, it highlights your contradiction as the state.
Right.
But because we've given so much monopoly of violence to the state, now someone calls the state, foot soldiers, and they proceed to kill this man, an American, for $20, for the same thing that they're doing on a massively larger scale.
Yeah.
All of the banks, Federal Reserve, International Monetary Fund, all of this is tied into that same level of counterfeiting.
And I think it's
Yeah.
Go ahead. Well, we are what?
We are allowing it. Again, we're allowing it. We're allowing it because of our ignorance or our, silence. And it's like Dr. King said, it becomes at a certain point, your silence is betrayal.
And the tool, which I think is really very destructive in all this, is that we always get caught up. There is a racial component to the story of America for sure. But when we make that the core issue, whenever we expose ourselves to the evil of these bad government actions, it almost always robs the energy and the attention of the public away from dismantling the law and pointing fingers at each other saying, well, my life matters. No, your life matters. No, my life matters. It's like, wait a second. We're all getting screwed over here. Come on now.
Right.
But we never can have that moment. Oprah will not allow that conversation to happen on her dialogue show. This is never allowed in the mainstream discourse, which is we're all being screwed over by these laws. I mean, Eric Garner was the other gentleman who said, I can't breathe. And, the man dies because he's selling Lucy cigarettes, unlicensed cigarettes. And I keep asking people, you guys made a big deal about that. You made a lot of money off of that man's death. Did you get rid of that law that said you had to have a license to sell cigarettes?
Right.
No, they didn't get rid of that law. They don't even know about that law. They're just like, oh, police kill man. Okay, therefore, let's make some money off of this. Let's make some political power. How about get rid of the power? That's never on tap. You never hear that question.
Right. Exactly. And that's where, listen, these are things that I call beautiful uglies. The state in its precision in tricking people in massive deception is beautiful. The precision of it and the intricacies and the synchronicity is beautiful. But it's to make something so ugly. It's a beautiful ugly. The system of racism is ugly. It changes. It adapts. But it's beautiful in how it adapts. Instead of saying, name calling and saying, you can't come to this part of the city, it turns into redlining and, fees or gun control in the name of safety. It's smart. It's beautiful. that system continues to evolve. And that's what makes it beautiful. But the outcome and the intent of the attack on freedoms for American people and humans in general, right? That is what's the most ugly thing ever. And I just, like you said, I just wish and pray and meditate for people to challenge people to look at it from that perspective. Cool. You think your life matters. They think their lives matter. None of your lives matter to the state. None of them. None of them. Only up until the point where it can exercise control and you're a battery. After you're outside of that battery and you're not useful anymore, your life does not matter to the state. And I want people to understand that.
And it's always a wolf in sheep's clothing, this political correctness that I really hate. And here's why. Yes, there is racism. Yes, people have, the things that to lynch a human being, black or white, which was happening in America, and it was being used as a way to keep people into a state of terror and submission to power structures, is a satanic and paganistic ritual going back thousands of years of trying to lynch a scapegoat. This is an old ritual that goes back tens of thousands of years. And it's awful.
Right.
But being told that every day that you are a victim, you are a victim, you are a victim,
right.
You have been brutalized, it is like a gaslighting effect. Because think about if you're in Japan. If you're in Japan, I have a friend that, he's white and his wife's Japanese, and they have a interracial child, and they weren't allowed to go on the parade. The Japanese school said your child's not allowed on the parade. You know what I mean? So that child's experiencing systemic racism, and then the Anu people of Japan, which is the indigenous culture of Japan, they get treated with systemic racism and disprivilege. So this is a universal thing, but always being told that no, you are only a victim. You can never be a king. You can never be a ruler. You can never be a billionaire. That is a very abusive thing to do to people.
Exactly. And it's psychological warfare. That's what makes it, again, it's a beautiful ugly. Because then they can come up with ways to say how it's primarily your fault. It's not, never look at the, don't look behind the curtain. Just look at the little characters playing. I give an example that's a very crude one, but it's true. We've seen all of these documentaries made about, R. Kelly and the heinous things that he's allegedly done to young people and all that other stuff. We've got entire jet flight logs of Jeffrey Epstein and the hundreds, if not thousands, of politicians, entertainers, actors, heads of, state, all of these different things that were involved in that underage pedophilia. We have that. We've had, the young lady that was a reporter had that story with Epstein 3-4 years ago, and it came out when she was like, I had that story, and they wouldn't push it. But we put the lower level person, R. Kelly, an entertainer, at the end of his career. We'll throw him out there to the bus. But yet and still we'll ignore the extremely powerful individuals that are complicit in these similar and same and even more grotesque acts. But we'll ignore that part of the conversation. And I'm just telling you, it's because the general public, we have to continue to restore power to the people. This has to be a people approach. It cannot be a black-only approach, white-only approach. The last president, Asian-only approach, Spanish-only approach. It can't be. The last president that I thought was spot on in this regard was John F. Kennedy. And I think that we need to get back to that mood, get back to growing some of your own food, getting back to having that family time. And I'm not saying that supersedes what big government has done, or make it about something that it isn't. But the reality is there has to be individual responsibility and accountability, and it has to be the larger level. So yes, the R. Kellys of the world got to go to jail, but the other big names, the Podestas and these other people, and I'm using that example, they have to go to jail and be held accountable as well. We have to do that the same way when we're looking at this. I don't care. Black, white, Spanish, Asian, doesn't matter. We all are in this collectively together, and it's not race by race. It's tyranny versus freedom, solutionary versus state.
Well, if we're going to go back to JFK, we're going to have to get a better security detail. So maybe you can tell us about that with your organization, because we got to survive and thrive. We'll continue live with Maj Toure, founder of Black Guns Matter. Up next, we'll dive more into how mass incarceration works and what people need to know about their firearm freedom.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It can be devastating. There is a law firm in Tampa Bay that will keep you informed throughout the entire process. That law firm is Catania & Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania & Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims do not even realize that they can claim compensation for their loss until they talk to Catania & Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com, award-winning over 28 years and family first. Catania & Catania, personal injury, auto accident, and motorcycle accident attorneys.
And now, Easy Lift Movers is on the air, reminding all Americans to show support to the brave men and women of our U.S. military. Their bravery and tireless efforts should never go unnoticed. This salute is brought to you by Easy Lift Movers, serving the community with quality and pride. Call the pros today, 813-505-8474. That's 813-505-8474. Also, all troops and veterans will receive a 10% discount. That's Easy Lift Movers, proudly saluting our troops and veterans. They are professionals who care.
If you know anything about NFL or about NCAA basketball or football or NHL or whatever, entertainment television, make sure you make a deposit at betdsi.com.
Promo code Bubba100.
Again, make a deposit. They've been getting a lot of great response from the Bubba Army. Make your deposit using promo code Bubba100. It's simple. Go to betdsi.com.
Promo code Bubba100.
Sign up with the Bubba100 code and make that deposit and get your bonus, plus have some fun at the safest wagering site available. Fast, on-time paying their winnings out. Incredibly mobile friendly. And if you haven't already signed up, then go now. Make your deposit at betdsi.com.
Promo code Bubba100.
Bubba100 gets you a special bonus and gets you in the game. Again, www.betdsi.com, and at the promo code portion,
Bubba100.
Bubba100. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to 1040 WHBO. We've seen unprecedented growth in listening over the last several months. Our ad partners are experiencing great success, and we thank you for supporting the many advertisers on this station. If you own a business or handle the marketing for a business, contact us. We'll get your message across the many media platforms we own. Call 813-250-3883. That's 813-250-3883. Or send us a note, web at radiogenesis.com. That's web at radiogenesis.com.
Neighbor's Choice is back. Here with Maj Toure, founder of Black Guns Matter, an activist, musician. Got a comment from Brad online. Systemic racism is systemic failure. The system has failed some groups more than others, but by putting in racism instead of failure, they can ignore their own failures. We exported jobs, brought in the drug war and welfare, public schools, etc., etc. The whole system failed, and that is called systemic racism. But it's really just a huge systemic failure that fails some more than others. I think that's a fair point there, Brad. Great point. Maj, I want to get to the issue of mass incarceration. I've had a gentleman on I've gotten to know named Rufus Rochelle, who is listening. He may be listening now. He's a frequent guest in Micanopy, Florida, where he's on home confinement. He had a 40-year sentence for a drug conspiracy charge. So he served 32 years. That's 1 year older than I've been alive. And he just got home confinement because of coronavirus, where he now has to serve a sentence at home. So But what I love about what Rufus, taught me when I talked to him is that he said, I said, how do you, he doesn't have a bitter bone in his body. I mean, he's always happy. He's always got a joy and a serenity in his frame, but he's also excited about activism. So I was like, how do you have both serenity and peace and a fire in the belly to get to work? And he said, I never let my mind go in that prison. He stayed on the phone coordinating relief efforts for Katrina victims while he was in prison. He stayed on the phone getting people prosthetic eye for a child and other needs. So he spent his time serving his neighbor and investing his mind in their space, that he never allowed his mind to stay confined to those walls. And he said, I will be out, and he's out. It's amazing what the mind can do, isn't it?
It's a testament to the power of having that faith of a mustard seed. It's a testament to the power of manifestation and realization. It's a testament to the power of meditation. These are things like I'm in my headquarters right now, and I have like way too many Black Guns Matter t-shirts and freedom over everything. I have way too much stuff in here. And I remember thinking about 2 years ago when we first started selling this merchandise, I remember saying, man, it would be great to like sell like a whole lot of this stuff. And we started literally with one t-shirt. It was one t-shirt that I took a picture of, and we put it on the website, and we did pre-orders. Now, is this the end all? Like, I didn't end poverty, but at the end of the day, that manifestation is real. So when it sounds a little backwards sometimes. A lot of brothers that'll go to jail, they'll say, man, jail was the best thing that happened to me. It's not necessarily that they went to jail. What it is their ability to focus without all of the external distractions. Their ability to manifest a thing, have a thought, sit down, know your buddy's not telling you every 2 days to come have a drink with you. No, you're not, going to the strip club every couple of minutes. No, you're not even the things that you enjoy, like sports. No, there's not something that's there to, take your attention from like actually you getting your life together, And so that's the beautiful ugly. That's one of the beautiful ways that you can take that time that someone's given to you and making it me time. Now, a lot of the people that are there, because these are things that, we can get without actually having to be incarcerated. The problem is there's so many laws, again, going back to the state saying, hey, man, you got to keep this amount of people locked up. There's a great book by Michelle Alexander called The New Jim Crow. When we're talking about racism and bias and bigotry and enslavement reshaping, that is the modern prison industrial complex. That was what the 13th Amendment was a little bit about, And so, yes, the brothers and the sisters have used that to their advantage. Some, not all. But the reality is I would rather people take time to get that lesson on their own, not by state force, not by, you have the vast, overwhelming majority of people that are incarcerated, therefore nonviolent crimes. The vast majority, we're talking about over 80-90% of people in the land of the free, locked up more than any other, civilized, quote unquote, civilized or modern nation in the world. That is another contradiction of the state. And again, we got to continue to place the blame where it goes, the state, the current state. When you're talking about a huge contradiction such as, I have friends that are doing over 10 years for first-time, non-violent felonies in regards to cannabis. Over 10 years. Meanwhile, in certain states now, it's lawful, and Coca-Cola is starting to buy up patents on strains to get ready to make billions of trillions of dollars, but my friends are still in jail. Yeah. That is a contradiction of the highest order.
Yeah, I have a friend, Craig.
When you're talking about these things, you have to address them.
Yeah, I have a friend, Craig Cecil, in Terre Haute, Indiana, who's serving a life sentence for doing body work in his car shop for trucks that were moving marijuana. He didn't actually touch marijuana. All the people who handled the marijuana, they're out. But because he exercised his constitutional right to a trial, they put him in prison for life. And he sits there today as an essential businessman, as many people make money off of this same substance. And he did body work, and he's got a life sentence for it. And he's a white middle class guy. But it just goes to show the system will grind up every one of us in their meat grinding machine if they get their tentacles around us and they want to. So you talked about manifestations. So I'm going to end with this. What if we had some solutionaries create cold fusion where you could power your home with ocean water or water, power your car, your transportation of meat and vegetables powered by water, and not have to rely on your Middle Eastern oil and the wars for that? What if we had solutionaries come up with transmutation where we could take ordinary recyclable materials and transmute them into rare earth minerals like gold and platinum and things that we need for electronics? What if we had a world where solutionaries figured out what was that thing on those Navy radars and figured out how to do anti-gravity? What if we had a solutionary that could manifest cures for cancer that cost pennies? What would that do? Those different things.
That would transform the place to the higher level of evolution that I believe the human condition can get towards. But in the meantime, you'd have to wrestle power away from the people that would not want those things to come out. Nikola Tesla was a multi-level genius. He was a Serbian scientist, for people that aren't aware of who Nikola Tesla was. That's what the Tesla car company is named after. Nikola Tesla was a genius. Anti-war machines, alternating current, AC/DC currents. These are, and there's rumors that he used to say that he was in touch with Venusian beings, people from Venus. I don't know. I wasn't around Nikola Tesla, but I do know that he's a multi-level genius. And I think that a lot of his genius was thwarted, i.e., Thomas Edison actually thwarted a lot of it for financial gain, not for humanity's gain. So I know that the human condition can go in that direction, and I'm hopeful for our evolution to continue to go there. But in the meantime, between and as we're going in that direction, I hope that everybody's armed to defend yourself against the small minority of people that do not want the human condition to evolve to even greater beings.
I like how you tied it all there together. It all comes together in a cohesive system. So I appreciate your time, Mars Toure. Always a pleasure talking to you. Keep up your educational efforts at the highest level of the land and the everyday land. We need all of that to make this thing come together. So I appreciate your time, Mars.
Thank you.
I'm David Gornoski. You've listened to another edition of A Neighbor's Choice. You can see the question is right before us. Are we going to choose to continue to sacrifice our neighbors to this meat grinder machine that we call law and order? Or are we going to learn to redeem the system and peacefully let it go? Allow police officers to not be scapegoated for bad laws and allow our citizens to not be scapegoated by those bad laws. We get rid of the bad laws and then we create the world we want. I'm David Gornoski. Godspeed.